Dr. Lee, as a physician and a subject matter expert in this field, with as much description as you can you tell me what happened?
It starts at Gethsemane. Luke, who is a physician, is actually the only one of the gospel authors to mention this aspect of what Jesus went through. And being in agony, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat became like drops of blood falling down to the ground. Hematidrosis, or bloody sweat, is very rare, but well documented in modern case studies. It can be a sign of extreme psychological stress where actual blood is excreted through sweat glands. This condition results from mental anguish or high anxiety, a state Jesus expresses by praying, "My soul is deeply grieved to the point of death." Then after the arrest in the middle of the night, Jesus was next brought before religious leaders, and it is here that the first physical trauma was inflicted. A soldier struck Jesus across the face for remaining silent when questioned. The palace guards then blindfolded him and mockingly taunted him, spat on him, and struck him in the face. In the early morning, while Jesus was battered, bruised, dehydrated, and exhausted from a sleepless night, he was taken to see Pontius Pilate. It was then in response to the cries of the mob that Pilate ordered Barabbas released and condemned Jesus to scourging and crucifixion. Scourging by the Romans would start by stripping the prisoner of their clothing and tying their hands to a post above their head. A flagrum, or short whip, consisting of heavy leather strips with lead spheres attached to the ends of each. The heavy whip is brought down with full force again and again across Jesus' shoulders, back, and legs. The beating is severe as the small bits of lead cause deep, large bruises which are broken open by repeated blows. The skin of the back is hanging in long ribbons, and the entire area is a mass of torn, bleeding tissue. When the centurion in charge determines that the prisoner is near death, the beating is finally stopped. The half-fainting Jesus is then untied and allowed to slump to the stone pavement, wet with his own blood. Roman soldiers place a crown of thorns on Jesus' head and a robe on his back. The robe helps the blood clot, similar to putting a piece of tissue on a cut from shaving, to prevent Jesus from losing more blood. As they hit Jesus in the head, the thorns from the crown push into the skin, and he begins bleeding profusely. The thorns also cause damage to the nerves that supply the face, causing intense pain down his face and neck. As they mock him, the soldiers also belittle Jesus by spitting on him. They rip the robe off Jesus' back, and the bleeding starts again. Jesus' physical condition becomes critical. Due to severe blood loss without fluid replacement, Jesus is in shock. He is unable to carry the cross, and Simon of Cyrene is chosen to do this. Jesus follows, still bleeding and sweating, a cold, clammy sweat due to shock, until he completes the 650-yard journey to Golgotha. Jesus is offered wine mixed with myrrh to dull the pain, but he refuses to drink. Jesus' shoulders are placed against the wood of the cross. The soldier feels for the depression at the front of the wrist. He drives a heavy, square, wrought iron nail through the wrist and deep into the wood. Then he moves to the other side and does the same to the other wrist, being careful not to pull the arms too tightly, but to allow for some flexion and movement. The huge nail, 7 to 9 inches long, damages or severs the major nerve to the hand, the median nerve. This causes continuous, agonizing pain up both Jesus' arms. The left foot is now pressed backward against the right foot, with both feet extended, toes down. A nail is driven through the arch of each foot, leaving the knees flexed. Jesus is now crucified. As he slowly sags down, with more weight on the nails than the wrists, extreme pain shoots along the fingers and the arms. As he pushes himself upward to avoid this stretching torment, he places his full weight on the nail through his feet. Again, there's the agony of the nail tearing through the nerves between the metatarsal bones of the feet. At this point, as the arms fatigue, great waves of cramps sweep over the muscles, knotting them in deep, relentless, throbbing pain. With these cramps, he is unable to push himself upward. Hanging by his arms, the pectoral muscles are paralyzed, and the intercostal muscles unable to act. Air can be drawn into the lungs, but cannot be exhaled. Jesus fights to raise himself in order to get even one short breath. Finally, carbon dioxide builds up in the lungs and in the bloodstream, and the cramps partially subside. He is able to push himself upward to exhale and bring in oxygen. It is during these periods that he uttered the 7 short sentences recorded. The first, looking down at the Roman soldiers, throwing dice for his seamless garment, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." The second, to the penitent thief, "Today you shall be with me in paradise." The third, looking down at John, the beloved apostle, he said, "Behold your mother." Then looking to his mother Mary, "Behold your son." The fourth cry is from the beginning of Psalm 22, my God, why have you forsaken me?" It is now almost over. he has lost a significant amount of fluid and blood. The lungs are struggling to gasp in small gulps of air. The dehydrated tissues send their flood of stimuli to the brain. Jesus gasps his fifth cry, "I thirst." He is offered a sponge full of sour wine, and after he receives this, he says, "It is finished." Finally, he can allow his body to die. With one last surge of strength, he once again presses his torn feet against the nail, straightens his legs, takes a deeper breath, and utters his seventh and last cry, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." The common method of ending crucifixion was by breaking the bones of the legs. This prevented the victim from pushing himself upward, so the tension could not be relieved from the muscles of the chest, and rapid suffocation occurred. The legs of the two thieves were broken. When the soldiers came to Jesus, they saw that this was unnecessary. John 19:36 says, "For these things took place that the scripture might be fulfilled. Not one of his bones will be broken." After this, the Roman centurion drove his spear through the fifth intercostal space between the ribs. From the wound came a flow of blood and water. This is consistent with a spear blow to the heart, which would have ruptured the pericardium, the sac surrounding the heart. This was done as an assurance that he was dead.